This is the FV4202. It's a battle rating 7.0 British medium tank, and it's quite fun to play. I really enjoy it. It's a generally well-balanced medium tank characterized by decent mobility, a funky turret design that is very out of place in its battle rating, that helps you out quite a lot, and uniquely it has a 2-plane stabilizer. It also has very good penetration for the tier, thanks to its APDS rounds, and in general it's well-balanced, fun to play, and fits right at home into the 7.3 British lineup. When it comes to mobility, the 4202 is pretty mobile, but about average for a medium tank on the whole. A top speed of 32 kilometers an hour is your huge problem here. It's a decently quick tank once it gets going, but this limiter is going to be felt. 510 horsepower is pretty good and will let you move pretty quickly, but on the whole, 32 kilometers an hour isn't great, especially compared to some of the other mediums in the range. However, the 4202 really shines in its armor profile. The hull is pretty bad no matter what. You're looking at a 50mm front and side plate, and realistically, even with good angling, you're still going to get penned here. You need to keep your hull hidden while in active combat at all times, because it's by far your biggest weak spot. The turret, however, thanks to its mantleless design, is really well armored. You're talking upwards of 260mm plating near the cheeks, and, in general, if you're wiggling your turret back and forth in an engagement, it's going to be really hard to pen you as long as you do not overturn. Because the sides of the turret are pretty weak, and even if you're trying to angle it, well, some guns with good normalization are going to just go through you anyway. The top of the turret is pretty thin, and there are small cheeks that sufficient guns will get through. In addition, your turret ring is relatively weak at 200mm, and anybody with a keen eye will still manage to go through it. Still, on the whole, provided you're playing hull down, this turret can be very hard to penetrate, and it will be the mainstay keeping you alive here. Unfortunately, it will not always be the best, but in general, it will hold you pretty well. So, let's talk about the gun and the firepower of the FV4202. So, it's got the 84mm gun. Much like most other British tanks in this range, it's decent. It's not anything super special, but you know what? It's a pretty decent gun for what it is. You've still only got solid shot no matter which way you go, which kinda sucks, but it is what it is. So, you've got two rounds. You've got the Shot Mark 1 that you start with, and you've got the Shot Mark 3, the APDS round. So, your Shot Mark 1's got 232 pen, the APDS round is 384. So, this largely comes down to, do you want more post-penetration damage, or do you want a basically guaranteed penetration no matter where you hit? And, honestly, I would just go with the APDS round no matter what. Honestly, it's better to guarantee the pen. Well, sometimes you just get gaijin that, you know, the round just doesn't go anywhere, but it is what it is. Your post-penetration's still gonna suck, but honestly, even the regular Shot Mark 1 is a pretty small round, so you're not going to have a lot of post-penetration anyway, and no matter which way you go, you're going to be precision aiming anyway. You've had to do it the whole way up the British line, you're still going to have to do it afterwards. You may as well just get used to crew sniping, ammo sniping, etc. So, notably, the 4202 gets a 2-plane stabilizer. It is one of the first tanks in the whole game to get it, especially for a medium, and it's not as big as you think it is. Honestly, it's a useful tool, and it will allow you to get some kills from time to time, but it's not super strong here. Ultimately, the 4202 isn't as aggressive as you'd want it to be to have a 2-plane stabilizer. So it's useful, don't get me wrong, but you're not going to be getting a bunch of kills on the move like you would with, say, a light tank or a faster medium. However, because the 4202 is such a good turret, you do a lot of hull down play, and if your turret peeking, if you're peeking hills a lot with the 4202, which you should be because that will allow you to utilize your armor as best you can, this is where the 2-plane really comes in handy, because you just poke over the hill, you fire, and you get back down. You don't have to wait for the gun to bounce or anything, and you've got pretty decent gun depression to boot at 10 degrees. So you should be able to stay hull down a lot, and thanks to the 2-plane stabilizer, you don't have to spend a lot of time exposed. Just keep in mind, your reverse speed sucks. It's like 5 kilometers an hour, and this does get you killed from time to time. Just be aware of it. So, as I talked about at the very start of the video, the 4202 has an excellent turret. It's mantleless, and it's one of the only tanks in the game that has this mantleless turret design, and it's pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good for what it is. So compared to the Centurion 3, which is pretty much the closest analog to the 4202, it's got less overall turret armor than the Cent 3, but it's bouncier. So the reason for this is because, thanks to the 4202's weird, wacky mantleless turret design, there's a lot of bouncing spots on this thing. It's angled really weirdly, and, you know, most of the time, if you're playing hull down, you can bounce a lot of stuff off this turret. But there are a lot of weak spots here. The cheeks of the gun, specifically right near the gun breech, is the huge weak spot here. A lot of things will just go through so long as they've got about 230 pen, and you're just going to die a whole lot here. Now, also, there's a couple weak spots. The turret ring is really bad. It's only 200 millimeters, and it's very easy to expose. Additionally, Cupola's only 60 meters, and if you get pen in the Cupola, oops, there goes your commander, and there's not really a whole lot you can do about this. Still, it's a pretty decent turret, and it's pretty bouncy. In an up tier, this doesn't matter. Like, in an up tier, you're just going to get heat FS through the turret all day, every day. You're just screwed. You can't do anything in an up tier. Now, your whole armor just sucks. It's just bad. Don't even try and rely on it. It might save you from time to time, but as a general rule of thumb, your whole armor is just garbage. You can't even angle it to make it much better. It's just trash. Just try and avoid exposing the hull at all times. However, the 4202 is small. It's got a really, really low silhouette, especially when you compare it to the Centurion. You can get away with hiding behind a lot of terrain cover that the Centurion just can't get away with. This isn't all it's worked up to be. Because it's so small, all your crew is very tightly packed together, and so is all your ammo. So, if you get penned, you're going to probably lose 2 crew, a breach, a turret ring, an engine, something. If you get penned and you don't die, you're going to be hurting bad. If you're looking directly at a 4202, so say you're head-on to a 4202, the left side sucks. You've got 3 crew members all directly in a line. You get penned here, you die. If you just get penned straight on from the hull, you just die. You've got 3 crew members all right there, you die. There's nothing you can do about it. If you hit the right side of the hull, direct on, there's a big ammo rack right there, and behind that ammo rack is some of the first stage ammo that will always be there so long as you actually have ammo left. So, you die. It's unfortunate, but, pick your poison either way you go, it's going to be a rough time. So I figure I should mention realistic and arcade because, it's what you always do in a vehicle review. Just like most other mediums and lights in this game, it's better in realistic. Sure, you get more power and turret handling in arcade, which is very, very nice, don't get me wrong, but your armor is pretty much the whole point of the 4202. It's the only thing keeping you alive. The turret is the main feature of this tank. And guess what? In arcade, you've got that penetration indicator. People are just going to know where to pen you, and uh-oh, you explode. We're also going to talk about crew skills while we're here. So, with any tank in the game, you spec almost exactly the same way. You take tank driving, you take targeting, you take leadership, and you take weapon reloading. These are going to be the 4 biggest things that will keep you alive the most and give you more kills. Other than that, as per usual, field repair is good for when something breaks and you somehow don't die immediately, like your turret ring or your breach. Agility is nice for when your gunner just explodes and there's nothing you can do about it. And range finding is, I would say it's less valuable. But if you find yourself at long range a lot of the time, or if you just simply need the rangefinder, you're not very good at estimating ranges, for example, it's a useful perk, but I'd call it less valuable. Other than that, just take whatever you want. It doesn't matter a whole lot. Unless you really, really want to spec into things, it's not super important which way you go. So, to close things off, I like the 4202. It should be pretty obvious, I like this tank a lot. It's one of my favorite tanks, just thanks to this weird turret. It's just cool. I just like the way it is. In-game, it's decent. I mean, it fits into 7.0 and 7.3 pretty nicely. It's pretty much terrible at anything past 7.3. If you get up tier, you just kind of explode. There's nothing you can do about it. And if you die, which you're going to do a lot in up tiers, it's kind of costly. It's 7,700 lines for repair cost, and this is pretty rough, especially when compared to most of the other 7.3 British lineup, and this whole lineup is going to leave you hurting for money no matter where you go. Now, I probably wouldn't talisman it either. It's simply not reliable enough in up tiers to be worth talismaning, in my opinion. You're better off going for one of the 7.3s like the Centurion 3, even the Carnarvon, if you're really looking for something to talisman in this range. I mean, on the whole, it's probably a 7.5 out of 10, maybe an 8 in a good day, maybe a 7 in an up tier. It's great if you like playing hold down, or if you like playing at range, just like all the other British tanks. It sure sets you up for knowing what to do for the rest of the line. But, like I said, you get up tiered, you just kind of explode. If you get down tiered, you can play pretty aggressively, but if you get up tiered, you just explode. And unfortunately, because it's 7.0 or 7.3, you get up tiered a whole lot of the time. Still, I like it. I recommend playing it. It's just not amazing. You need to be mindful of its disadvantages. Thanks again, and I will see you again another time. Bye.